This time on Landmarks, we marvel at the Leshan Buddha. Visit the rebirth of the Museum of Decorative Arts and Design. Witness the wonder of the Banaue rice terraces. And finally, a landmark made in China. But first, she has stood as a beacon of freedom and liberty for more than 120 years. The Statue of Liberty is one of the world's most recognisable landmarks at the entrance to one of the world's most famous cities, New York. Since her completion in 1886, the colossal lady has loomed even larger in the imagination of Americans than her imposing physical presence. The copper shell statue is 46 metres high. Erected during the late 19th century melting pot mass migration from Eastern Europe, she was for millions their first impression of the New World. The Statue of Liberty, officially Liberty Enlightening the World, was a gift from the French government to the city and commemorates the alliance between the United States and France during the American Revolution from 1775 to 1783. It was funded completely through the donation of the French people. The most ambitious visitors can walk the 354 steps from the pedestal to the crown. But there are some who crave a more unorthodox entry and view. French daredevil Terry Deco had his plans spoiled for a bungee jump from her torch when his motor-driven parachute was ensnared. Deco, who uses the name Terry Doe, was left dangling for more than 30 minutes, some 100 metres above the harbour, before he was rescued by New York police officers and then arrested. A security alert was issued and the facility closed. Visitors who lost their chance to climb the famous statue were not amused. Even at the best of times, visitors, orthodox and otherwise, are screened by elaborate security measures to gain entry to the statue. Such examinations have become common throughout the United States, but most visitors grin and bear it. Terry Deco was sentenced to forfeit his equipment to pay for some $7,000 in fines and repairs to the monument. Damage was caused to the statue from scratches to the gold leaf of the torch and abrasions to the raised arm area. But the Frenchman, who has something of a track record, says it was worth the fine.
It's like Everest, Mount Everest, you know. I've done a lot of things before, Olympic Games, the Golden Gate Bridge, the Brooklyn Bridge, the Eiffel Tower. The Statue of Liberty was the greatest symbol, the greatest place, one of the highest, and it was a bit magic. So for me, it was the top of the top to do this.
Visitors wishing to take in the same view as Deco can take an elevator or climb 192 steps to an observation deck at the top of the pedestal. Ferries from Battery Park in New York City now take visitors to Liberty Island. The Statue of Liberty was declared a national monument in 1924. In order to prepare for the statue's centennial year in 1986, a French-American rehabilitation project repaired and cleaned the statue, replacing the glass and metal torch with one covered in gold leaf. In 1883, one Emma Lazarus wrote a sonnet to the Statue of Liberty titled "The New Colossus" to help raise money to complete the statue's pedestal. It gained little recognition until 1903, when a bronze plaque of the poem was placed inside the pedestal. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land, here at our sea-washed sunset gate shall stand a mighty woman with a torch whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome, her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbour that twin cities frame. Keep, ancient lands, your storied pomp, cries she, with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Coming up, the Leshan Buddha. The Minjiang River in Shichuan province is home to one of China's great treasures, Daduhe, the Leshan Buddha. 160 kilometres from Chengdu city, the statue of Maitreya Buddha overlooks the beautiful confluence of the Minjiang, Daduhe and Qingyi rivers. It is the largest stone carving artwork in the world. The giant Buddha is like a mountain. From its peak, more than 70 metres from the ground, people appear as ants between the toes. His big toe is over 8 metres long. Carving of this sculpture was initiated by the noted monk Hai Tong in the year 713 and required 90 years to complete. But like many of the world's great monuments, these days Daduhe needs help. The United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organisation, UNESCO, are providing technical expertise for its preservation. This big Buddha has many problems. These are some of the main issues. First, because there is a lot of rain, water seeps into the statue from the back and results in serious erosion. Second, throughout the years, the big Buddha has been repaired by people at different times with different materials. Bricks, soil, stone were used to repair the statue, and it was badly damaged. According to historical records, Hai Tong gouged his own eyes in an effort to protect funding from disappearing into the hands of greedy officers and died before the completion of his life's work. Hai Tong hoped the Buddha's presence would subdue the river's swift current and protect boatmen who frequently vanished in a hollow below where the Buddha later stood. But now the giant Buddha is so old that foliage is trying to reclaim him. Scientists from the Chinese Institute of Technology for the Protection of Cultural Relics and the Shichuan Provincial Institute have found that the Buddha is reasonably stable despite strong erosion.
Where the problem emerges more gradually, such as erosion or river damage, situations like that, we can usually give some technical assistance. We often send consultants who can advise on what are the best means of rescuing cultural property in that situation.
The Leshan giant Buddha is truly a remarkable artistic achievement. His head is 15 metres long and 10 metres wide, with 7-metre long ears, each of which can hold 2 people inside. In 1995, Yu Tek, a music conductor turned businessman living in Hong Kong, committed $120 million for restoration work on the giant Buddha. A year later, UNESCO put the giant Buddha on the World Natural and Cultural Heritage List. We are proud that the Leshan Big Buddha has been included on the UN World Cultural Heritage List. We are also proud that 1,200 years ago, we had the skill to carve such a huge Buddha. The inclusion on the heritage list means we will carefully preserve it and we will not let it disappear. The Minjiang Temple is situated not far from Daduhe's right side. The insteps, 8 metres in width, provide visitors favourite places to absorb the view, to rest and to take photos. Another attractive place is the side of the Buddha's head. People can go there directly through a walkway along the cliff and appreciate the engraving art by seeing his hair as worn in 1,021 buns embedded with stones. Once a palace of French kings and princes, the Louvre is today the Palace of Arts and is home to one of the richest collections in the world. The historic Louvre is also home to the Museum of Decorative Arts and Design, the site of one of France's most lavish museum restorations. The Overhaul, at a cost of more than $44 million US, took almost a decade to complete. Housed in a wing of the vast complex since 1905, the Museum of Decorative Arts and Design fell into dusty neglect during which its future was uncertain. The cathedral-like main hall has been opened up and restored to its original likeness, looking out over the Tuileries Gardens. It forms the spine of the museum, which is organised along both chronological and thematic lines. Besides celebrating the skills of France's furniture makers, jewellers and craftsmen, the displays provide snapshots of French decorative taste, although the emphasis is on the rare and costly rather than the everyday. The stiff elegance of the 18th century shifts to the First Empire with its echoes of ancient Greece and Rome, passing through heavy 19th century styles to the lavish designs of the Art Deco period. The 1920s apartment of the fashion designer Jean Lanvin, restored in all its sombre luxury, contrasts with the lively decorations from a bedroom in the home of William Hope, a prominent banker from the 19th century.
We
wanted to reopen the Museum of Decorative Arts to the public after 10 years of being closed. It was a massive building renovation, which allowed us to find this extraordinary building, which of course is apart from the Louvre Palace. And at the time, we also undertook a large and extensive restoration of the collections, which has allowed us to present a vast history of decorative arts from the Middle Ages and today. Different rooms inside every stage in the museum are named for the years they represent, such as Room 1900 and Room 2000.
I
think I can say that this museum is rather unique in the world for the quality of the collections presented in it. Another unique feature is the way we have named the period rooms. The Museum of Decorative Arts and Design has about 150,000 objects, ranging from a reconstructed 15th century bedchamber to works by contemporary designer Philippe Starck. The collection, based mainly on gifts from private donors, reflects the generally opulent style in furnishing and decoration of France's aristocracy from the Middle Ages to the present day. The design by architects Bruno Moinard, Sylvie Jodard and Antoine Plazanet forms chronological exhibition spaces. Circulation within these spaces was planned to break the building's natural architectural lines by varying the entrances and creating surprises and events to sustain the visitor's attention. We worked on the light and the positioning of rooms while preserving the openings to the outside, to the city. I mean to the side of Rivoli Street and the other sides of the Louvre and the Tuileries Garden. The collections housed in the Museum of Decorative Arts and Design are a testament to the French art of living, the savoir-faire of its craftsmen and industrialists, the research and creativity of its artists, the passion of its collectors, the generosity of its donors, and the desire to pass these riches on to others. Coming up, the Banaue rice terraces. Filipinos often refer to the Banaue rice terraces as the eighth wonder of the world, and understandably so. Of all the exquisitely sculpted rice terraces which climb the slopes of the Cordillera in Luzon, the largest island of the Philippine archipelago, those of Banaue are the finest expression of the genius of the local tribe, the Ifugao. After Ferdinand Magellan reached the Philippines in 1521, the mountain people continued to resist the Spanish occupation for 3 centuries. They managed to endow the province of Ifugao with a unique landscape, born of a harmonious complicity between human beings and their environment. In recent years, the outside world has begun to discover the region. Increasing numbers of tourists are making the journey to these beautiful and fertile hills. But with the growing numbers, the newfound wealth has come with some complications. The young now have previously unheard of opportunities to make a living. As a result, many are leaving the farms.
No one is working on them. Like me, if I am left alone, what I can only flood in the paddy is, that's it. Although I need to flood the whole paddy, but if I cannot repair a part of it where the water goes out, then that's abandoned.
60-year-old Pepe has worked these lands all of his life. Here, the men and women carry on the traditions and practices of their ancestors. They use only organic fertilisers and pesticides of plant origin. The Ifugo people prize their tinawan, a fragrant homegrown upland rice. But make no mistake, the lifestyle is harsh. Working without the help of animals and only possessing basic tools, these farmers work crops at altitudes over 1,000 metres high. Pepe's eldest daughter, Elsie, has stayed on the land, but her children have moved on.
Oh, they're not here. They got other places to work.
It was not until the American occupation that began in 1898 and the opening of the highlands by army engineers that the tribes were finally integrated. Despite this, the Ifugo have continued to maintain their tribal traditions, which include dance and art. Today, most of Banaue's young people find it easier and more profitable to work in wood carving shops. Even some of the elders have abandoned farm work to dress up and pose for tourists. The Philippines government is trying to save the rice terraces and plans to begin restoration work this year. One of its goals is to come up with programs to boost young people's incomes from their farm work. But while several programs have focused on the physical preservation of the terraces, using a scientific and technological approach, few efforts have been taken to preserve the indigenous cultures that created them. And it is widely believed that if this culture dies, the farming practices will go as well. Elders like Pepe cannot help but feel sad for what, to them, seems the end of a long-held tradition.
We want to preserve the rice terraces, to keep it there because it's so, it's so valued to us. When there will be no more rice terraces, it seems as the face of our ancestor is erased. And we value very much the rice fields.
But many believe those same local customs and traditions that have kept the culture strong will help many to stay on their land for generations to come. This landmark takes the phrase "made in China" to a whole new level. This house, located 2 hours south of Beijing in Tianjin, is over 100 years old. But the exterior walls have been covered with a variety of porcelain pieces, such as plates, vases and figurines, dating back many centuries. It's the brainchild of local resident Zhang Lianzi, who has been working on his gigantic art piece for at least 4 years, when he bought this French-style house for $125,000 US. The 5-storey building used to be the residence of the Minister of Finance at the turn of the century, and was then used as a bank after the founding of New China in 1949. The house fell into disrepair for many years before Zhang decided to give it a new look. At first, he used ceramic tiles to decorate the rails and doors, which turned out to be, as he said, unexpectedly beautiful. Greatly encouraged, he began to experiment with the exterior wall, becoming more and more ambitious as the refurbishing went on. Zhang is particularly proud of the 4 China dragons, each more than 200 metres long, which entwine the exterior wall of the building. The most important thing is to keep all of these old ceramics chips. I think the best way to keep them is to cement them on the wall. That way they can be passed down from generation to generation. This is something traditional and has a long history. As they are so fragile, it's really difficult to preserve. Zhang takes the time to visit the house every day to check on progress. The most difficult part, he said, was sorting through thousands of porcelain pieces for suitable items used in different parts of the house. His project manager agrees. When we first started working on the project, we were really scared. We were dealing with antiques every day. I never thought we could create something like this when we had no experience and no blueprint. Zhang Lianzi always relies on inspiration. The house has aroused intense interest among the public. As the construction of the building proceeded towards completion, curious passers-by bombarded the workers with questions and stares. Zhang has collected over 4,000 vases, 20 tons of crystal and 400 stone lions to create his China house. The porcelain chips are mostly fragments of old Zhang bowls, plates and vases. Zhang porcelain was a sign of wealth and power, a tradition that started with the Song dynasty, which spanned 3 centuries from the year 960. Amazingly, Zhang Lianzi is not an architect or artist. He's a successful businessman owning a chain of Cantonese-style restaurants. He was born into a wealthy family and was influenced by his father to take a keen interest in art and antiques. It was an interest that the younger Zhang took to heart, and over the past 20 years, he's spent a substantial amount of the restaurant profits in expanding his collection, of which antique porcelain makes up the majority. Zhang is keen to share his passion with as many people as possible, and his restaurants are decorated by much of his 20-year-old collection. It's not unusual to see the 50-year-old host discussing the finer points of his displays with diners. A true collector collects the history of antiques. If a collector tries to hide things away after he collects them, then the antiques lose their identities. Collecting is not meaningful anymore if other people know nothing about the beauty of the antiques. When we share something beautiful with other people, we feel something beautiful in return. No surprise when the diners at Zhang's restaurants bring out their cameras, not to photograph the food, but to photograph the 2,000-year-old Buddha seated at the end of the table.